Today is a quick demonstration showing the installation of the CD3 450mm radius pure curved in-frame door from Aisling Artisan Furniture. It's going to be broken up into three main sections. Talk very briefly about the construction of the carcass and how it needs to be made. We're going to talk about just a couple simple methods of securing the frame to the carcass. We are going to look at the types of hinge to use, and in this case, wedge plate. I'm going to show the positioning from the top down. It doesn't then matter what height you're talking about. Different heights can be established from just working your way down from the top. We'll show that. So the positioning and exact positioning of where that needs to be onto the side of the carcass. And then also I have these a little bit colour coordinated to show just the different pieces. We're also going to show the exact positioning of where the borehole needs to go into the back of the curved door itself. So we're going to go through the three steps now. For this example, we are working just with the very basic heights of 720mm carcass, and I also have the frame also done at 720mm. We all know that you can have your frames at 739, 740, with or without pelmet frames, but the constant is that the top of the carcass is always running flush with the top of the frame. And this is why it's from this datum point that we are going to take our measurements down and then carry the measurements down for the final hinge on the bottom. At the minute, we have made our carcass by putting the top and bottom onto the sides, rather than the normal way of the sides going on being screwed in from the side. This means that on the CNC, all we've had to create is a 450 by 450 with a 450mm radius. We know then that from point to point, it's exactly the correct radius. Right now, I'm going to take a very simple method of fixing this on, and that is just going to be by a simple Kreg jig from the back side of the carcass in to fix it into place. Always making sure that we're running bang on in with the top of the carcass as well. One of the other main points to make is that we need to ensure that the side of the carcass is running flush with the side of the frame. You have a further point. The furthest point is this front edge. You need to make sure that is in line. It's not only just about having it in line with the top. The way to do that is by placing it on its side. Okay, we can then see that the frame is resting on top of the worktop and the carcass is resting on it. So both of them are exactly in line. And then we can start to make sure that our frame is the same the whole way around. And as you can see from this, when we leave our frame, and this is what the QC measures are, is that whenever we are perfectly in line with one side, but whenever we put this up, we are perfectly in line at the other side. Okay, it's one of our QC checks. So I'm going to go ahead and get this screwed on. Okay, so I'm getting ready to mark the back of the stile of the door to see where the 35mm borehole hinge is going, 13mm deep. I just got a bit of cardboard underneath the door to save it from being scratched, and we'll go ahead and clamp it down. You can always help the pressure on the joint of the door by making sure there's a little bit of extra support underneath as you're clamping it down. For this example, we have went 100mm from the end of the door up, 100mm from the bottom of the door up. The most important thing to remember, where a lot of people do wrong, is that they measure the next points for the centre of the 35mm bore from the outside of the door in. That's not the way. From the inside of the door out is the way to make your mark. The outside of the door is cut by hand, it's angled, it's shaped to fit its own frame. The measurement you were looking from in here out is 38mm. What I like to use then is the old-fashioned bradawl to pinpoint exactly where that hole is going, so that whenever we do use the 35mm cutter, it will keep its place exactly where it needs to be. So the next part we're going to be looking at is putting the cruciform or the extension plate. The extension plate, called an extension plate because it pulls it out away from the carcass to get in line with the side of the frame. We just need to work on the distance back and the distance down from the top of the carcass. I always work from the top down because, again, like I said before, we're running flush with the top of the carcass with the top of the frame. For this particular example, this carcass has been made out of 19mm board, 19mm veneer board. The majority of stuff you'd be using would be 18mm MFC. But we've still just got a simple little calculation to do. Because I know this is 19mm carcass I'm using, and this is 37mm in-framing, I know that my rebate, my step from here up is 18mm. I know that I've got a 2mm gap, and I know that from the top of the door down, as I've already shown, is coming down 100mm. So we want to get that distance first from the top down. So we've got 18 plus 2 plus 100 is 120mm. So I can pretty easily just go from the inside and come down and mark 120mm. And I'll square that off with the square. So now we have found where the hinge plate needs to be in relation to the bore hole on the door, which keeps everything in line. But when we do offer this up to the line, we don't really still know where we need to be putting our drill holes. We do, however, know that the distance between the drill holes is exactly 32mm. Half of 32mm is 16mm, so if we come up 16mm from our line, we will have our first screw hole. Again, we'll square that off. So at least now we know that here, coming down, is where our first screw is to go in line up. The most important part then is the distance back. Okay, so the magic number here that everybody's looking for is the distance from the inside, the back of the frame or the front of the carcass to the center of the screw hole, this screw hole. And that figure is 37mm. 37mm back. Is one way of doing it, or the other way of doing it, let me just get our plate. I now know exactly the center hole for that. Or the other way to do it, which I think is the easiest way, is to rip yourself a piece of 16mm. Put the 16mm into the bag and offer the plate up towards it. And what you will find, if you can see it at all there, is that I'm exactly in the crosshairs of that hole. Okay, so I think for this, I think I'm going to go ahead and just use the 16mm. And I'm going to use my bradawl again to give me a good positioning. the last thing to do, and again, very important, is to measure your distance from the center hole of a bore hole on the door to the next, and that distance is where you carry the center line down, and repeat the same method using the 16 in here and the 16 up from the center line. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. One of the ways of knowing the distance from the hinge down is to take your overall height of the door. This, for example, is 660 mil high, just measured by a tape. We know we've come down 100 mil here and 100 mil up. 200 mil off 660 leaves us with 460 mil exactly from the center point here to here. Now what you've actually seen when you're doing is dry fitting in the extension plates. And you're all probably wondering, why haven't I actually put the wedges on? The wedges, the part number of this will be on this video as well. The wedge is to make sure that, in exaggeration, you're pulling the door further in. I like to have these bored first and then take them back out, because it just makes the fitting of it just that bit easier, because it can be a little bit tricky to hold them all together. Okay, so it's time to clip the doors on. I always like to put a bit of cardboard down to sort of simulate the 2 mil gap on the bottom, and then just gently line the clips up first of all before trying to snap them into place. Okay, snip, snip. So that's the first time I've clipped these on. We can see on the inside now if there's any little amounts of adjustment to do. So we can see that on the inside there, yeah, I've got a little bit more of a gap up here than down here, but that's just down to a little bit of adjustment. Okay, so this is the first time the door was on. It's sitting a little bit proud here, about 2 mil. So we're going to bring the hinges in a little bit. It's pretty perfect along the top. It's straight, it's square. Can't really see anything that's going to cause us much issue. I'm just going to square it up. Okay, so just after a little bit of lining up, we can see that we've got our 2 mil gap running the whole way up and around. Not too difficult at all to do a few different screw settings. And we'll also see then that on the other side we are nicely in line the whole way up. The only thing I would say is that whilst we've got a gap at the top, we've no gap down the side. But we are square, and we're actually sitting a little bit far in, maybe 2 mil, 3 mil in past this. But that's because, and thankfully with my little access panel at the side of the carcass, if we bring this out to where that should be, to have our 2 mil gap, we will then be flush in line with the front. And therefore you're needing a little door stop to bring it like that. Or leave it closed tight if you wish. That's it, guys.